your chat. I'm going to start again because I think I started before we were actually live. Here we go. Hello, everybody. My name is Nima, and I'm thrilled to be here. I want to spend time exploring a few things around women, work, money, and life. We have a very special guest. I hope she'll be joining us soon. But I will warm things up in the meantime. Hey, Danièle, how are you?
I'm okay. I jumped in when you were saying maybe she's not here. I'm here.
Great. Okay, so I'm going to start. I want people to, if they're at home or wherever, stand. Oh, of course you're at home. What am I talking about? Stand up, please. And not you can sit down. But I just want to start off with what I've created. This is my Corona greeting. Are we ready? Okay, so my Corona greeting is, hello, shake your hand. Come on, I shake your hand. Okay, then I give you a high five. Woo! Go on then. Yay! And then I give you a hug because I like hugs. So I give you a hug and I say, welcome to our space. Danièle.
Yes.
You are a magnificent human. I am so thrilled that this era, this technical ability, everything has linked me with you. Wow. And the reason I say this is because, well, everything. So let me start, not at the beginning, but just to give a few things. For those of you who do not know, this woman left a war-torn region, basically, went halfway across the world, landed in Canada during a snowstorm, as you do. No money, very cold, I assume. I don't know how old your children were at the time. And then she set about basically had to earn money. Yeah, we all have to earn, right? And instead of being rejected, dejected, and feeling like rubbish, at one point she said, enough, I'm going to start my own thing. And the rest, as they say, is history. But just to give you a couple of things. One is she created a niche for herself. She created her own brand of success along the way, and she has branched out into other things like TV. So I'm really thrilled to have Danièle with us, not because of actually what you've done, Danièle, to be honest, but because of who you are, and what you represent. So for our people who are joining us, if you have any questions, big light bulb moments you want to share, please post them in the comments. We're going to be fed the comments as we go along. This is a relaxed conversation. Last thing I'll say is this, before I hand over to Danièle, is, Danièle, so Danièle not only travels halfway across the world, not only survives, and the 4 kids and the law, and I have to invent my own business, my own life. She then starts a TV channel. All right. Just over a year ago, I think, roughly. And what you're doing is you're putting out little snippets of videos and thoughts, which are so important, like, how about being vulnerable, right? Because it's rubbish to pretend everything is fine when it's not. People, get the shock of their life if they try something out, like becoming an entrepreneur, and guess what? It doesn't go to plan. So, Danièle, I want to ask you, what is your big takeaway from life?
My big takeaway from life, actually, it's to live your life. It is my takeaway. My takeaway is life is a learning curve. Life is everything in movement. Life is whatever you can achieve for yourself, for others. So my takeaway is live within your life. Don't live next to anything. So if you're talking about life, then be alive, be in it, be in the present, be all in. I mean, all in. My takeaway is that I learned life actually taught me, people taught me, because life is people. It's everything around life. Life is intangible, but it does become tangible through people, through experiences, through the highs and the lows, through the joys and the sorrows. So that's what I'm taking away from life. It is life itself, and I'm not done yet.
Good. Amen to that. Yes. Be in it. That's such an important thing, isn't it? I find that I mean, I'm guilty of this, and many women especially, it's this idea of there's so much going on and such a big jigsaw puzzle in your head, a three-dimensional one. It could be who's going to eat what, what's happening when, what, how much money do you need for something to happen, what, or your business if you're launching it. It's a very mashed up thing that's going on all the time, 24/7, right? And so to be in yourself is so important and actually so powerful.
Yeah.
This week, Bob Geldof there was an article written about him. He's part of a documentary. I want to see it. But he said, there's no rear view mirror. That was the line that I loved that he said. There is no rear view mirror with life. You have to go on, right? Just keep going on.
Yeah. Voila. You have to go on. You have, like I said, you have to be in or out. Mm-hmm. You cannot be, I said, you can't be half pregnant. You are pregnant or you're not. So if you go in, you go all in. And it makes a lot of difference when you start with this kind of thinking. It's actually because out of that thinking comes power. Power is right there. Power is when you decide that you want to live your own life the way you design it. Of course, we sometimes have no choices. I'll put it in between bracket because I always, when I grew up, some people took away from me my right to choose. And until the age actually of 19, where my family that I loved decided that they are going to choose the men that I should marry. So when people see me and they know me, they say, how can that be happening? I mean, we know you, you're such a strong woman. Well, being strong, being courageous, and loving your family, because that is your bond, that it's all you know. Sometimes you have to let go of certain things and embrace what is happening to you. So I accepted that. And I had 4 absolute magnificent children, 3 daughters and a son. But you see, when things get very difficult, I learned one of the things is try to find that little light, that little positive spot where you could get in and try to grasp everything you can so you can go through the first shock of the emotion that we don't understand. So life now has decided through other people that this was going to happen to me because I needed to learn something. And God, I learned. So it was a marriage of 27 years. And the man was an exceptional human being. I just didn't love the man and I didn't choose the man. So he's the father of my children, but I learned a great deal with him. And I had, like I said, I do have these wonderful children that maybe if I had chosen another person, maybe it would be different. I don't know. So not knowing, it's okay.
Well, this is it. I think the point is that you will never know, and we will never know so many things about life, right? It's about letting go, I think, and embracing what is. To your point about choice, because I know that you've done little vignettes, videos around the idea of choice. My big thing is that there is always choice, but sometimes it's between a bad and a worse situation, right? But it's still choice. And what you're talking about really about your family is that you had choice, but you had this huge pull in opposing directions. And what is the more important at that time? There's a question from somebody who's tuning in, and she says, this is from Grace, she says, what's your biggest setback and how did you overcome it? But can I add to that, what was your lowest ever point? What was your lowest ever thing?
It has not much to do with the business. It has to do because I'm a great believer in like before I answer your question, I just want to say something. So we set, the foundation. I believe that whatever we do, whatever we build on a business world, professionally or otherwise, it is the reflection of who we are. So, that being said, for me, the most important thing, my greatest success, anything and everything that keeps me going and has always, was my family. So it was my mother, then my brother and my mother. Today, my mother passed away, but it is my children and my grandchildren, so my family. So when you ask me that question, I would say that the worst thing that I've ever experienced, the lowest that I went, was when I lost my mom. Because you have to understand the connection that I had with my mom. It was very particular, very special. She was my everything. She was breathing, I was breathing back. So I never experienced that kind of loss. And I know now what losing someone means. So for me, losing in business, okay, but I can rebuild. I can decide just to change direction. But when you lose someone that is so dear to you, there is no going back. There is only the memories. There are only the memories. So that is my low point. She lives through me. She keeps going through me. And I will never, ever, ever let her go until I die. So this is my way of saying, think about your priorities. Make sure that you understand them. Make sure that you balance and your life based on your priority. Each one is different. So there is no, remember, you mentioned that for me, choice is important. So no matter what we're going to say during that hour, no matter what I may say or what I wrote, I always tell people, please inspire yourself, but don't try to be nobody else but you. So know who is important and what is important for you. Grasp that, give it your whole, and then the rest is just to add on some fun, some challenges. This is life.
Yeah, it's life. It's interesting, isn't it? Because, of course, on the one hand, we take it very seriously and so on. But actually, on the other hand, it is about having that inner liberation of saying, actually, forget this, like it's fine, or they can get stuffed, or whatever that thing is. You know what I mean? Let go of certain things. We have here, my mum was a brilliant businesswoman, and now she's got Parkinson's and dementia. So Grace, right. I'm so sorry to hear this. It is difficult because, of course, it's about the human connection, isn't it? And the ability to literally have a conversation and so on. And it's about the finality of death, isn't it? So, with a business, as you say, you can always create, recreate, do something again. But when something is final, like Bob Geldof said, there's no rear view mirror. You can't go back to something. It's done.
And you know what, Nima, I want to say something about what we're going through internationally, worldwide. It's actually funny to say so because, yes, it has its very bad side, but it also brought back certain values, foundations that are absolutely necessary, which is the H to H, human to human. It is important to reconnect to that, no matter what field we are into. And it brings us back to the field that we are today, which is technology. Look at what technology can do. I mean, bring us all together, learn from each other, see each other. This is positive side. But we need to also acknowledge all the inequalities that are in our world. And the COVID-19 brought that to light. So we can't hide anymore. We cannot not see anymore. We have to speak up. We have to do things. We have left others decide for us too often. So it's important to get together, like I said this morning, and to just do what needs to be done, not just for me, myself, and I, but for the whole, for the society, for the world, for our children, for our grandchildren, for us.
Yes, I mean, my hope is that whatever things that we have realized on an individual level around being, in lockdown or whatever else, is something that we take with us when lockdown is lifted. That's the big thing. The human condition is so interesting because we're rubbish at
Yes.
remembering what we've just been through and actually making sure it doesn't happen again, for example. Yeah. So yes, let's see. I hope that companies embrace technology, that more women are able to stay earning even when they've got other things going on in their life, even
Yes.
if they can't go back in. So yes, let's see. If you have any questions, by the way, feel free to just post it in the chat, the message to everyone. Now, Danièle, of course, people want to know about things like your entrepreneurial streak. Yeah. So again, what is that? Like, are you a killer negotiator? Are you the sort of person who knows, this is the weak spot, I'm going to go for, what kind of a person, an entrepreneur are you?
How do we say that? I am the iron hand within a velour glove. I think first and foremost, when I became an entrepreneur and I started negotiating, and you negotiate based on how you climb into the society or the social picture. My first instinct is, what's in it for both of us? It is important for me because no matter what kind of partnership you're going to get into, if you get into a partnership and if both are agreeing that it's a short term, then we have to say it, because again, goes back to the choice. If the other one understands where you stand and what you want, and you understand what the other one wants, then you become in a better position of a partnership. Partnership for me means a lot. I deal with human beings. I do not deal with products nor services. I deal with a human being. So how do I feel? So yes, I could be a very tough negotiator, but this is what I love. This is what I find the juicy, because this is where we learn to actually go beyond our capabilities, go beyond what we know already, and to learn from the other one, because it depends on how the conversation goes or how the pictures is being shown. And you have to be comfortable with that, Nima.
So this is a really interesting point, though, because, for example, earlier today when I was in a different session, the idea of, I was talking about money and women, and just, if anybody wants to know, get in touch. But women really end up very, very poor before they die in the majority of cases. Okay, so let's not go there right now. But the idea of negotiating over money, meaning the cost of something, the value of something, and actually, let's be honest, Danièle, inventing it.
Yeah.
Having to invent a figure, a benchmark, something you're not going to go below. That is a huge thing when you start out, right? What is that thing that happened in your head that you thought, this is what I need to stick with? I read, and again, you never know when you read media reports if they're exactly accurate, but I read that when you, so Danièle created a glove that is an exfoliating glove, and do you like the way I did that? Demonstration. And she sold it literally, knocking on the doors of the bars and so on. And you had a target. The target was that she had to sell, I think it was $250 a day. Otherwise you wouldn't go home. I don't know. But really it was a case of what is that thing where the shift inside you where you thought, this is my thing. I am not going to deviate from this thing. And this is how I'm going to make it happen. What is that thing?
Would you believe me, Sue, if I tell you that when you are aware of the choice you make? I made a choice to build my own company. I started in a basement with almost no money, just this, kind of rage, but it's a positive one. To do something, to share something, to create something, and to share it with the others. Because for me, it was not normal that we don't understand what exfoliation was. It's crazy, but that's what was my passion. It was, how do you keep this skin healthy? How do you keep yourself healthy? How do you embrace who you are, and so on and so forth? So, when you decide that, and you decide that you want to be in it, you do what got to be done.
Mm.
So I never thought, oh my God, I have to do this and this and this and that. I knew that every morning I had to wake up, feed my children so they can go to school, take care of my mother because she was sick, then take my car and go from spot to spot, wash the hands, talk about my product, explain what it was. There was only one target that I did, which was, sometimes when you hear people say, I need a $1 million per year in order to do this and that and have a profit and so on. For me, it was way too complicated. It was actually what was scaring me because it was too far. So I decided that I wanted to know, what do I need on a daily basis?
Break it down. Yeah.
Yes, I
So
brought
you
it down
need
because
yeah.
the bites were smaller.
Mm.
So the end result is the same, but I broke it down. And I thought, if I need $250 per day, this is what I'm going to get no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a really important thing, which is actually breaking things down in order to enable yourself. Because if you look at the big picture, it's like climbing a mountain. A friend of mine, I used to climb mountains and cycle across countries and that sort of thing. And one of my friends really surprised me, and it stayed with me ever since then. She said she couldn't face looking at where we needed to get to. She was head down, focusing on the next thing and the next thing, the next step, or the next 10 kilometers or whatever. And it's enabling as opposed to disabling yourself.
Absolutely.
That fear, right? There's a question here, which is an interesting one, because it says, what would your best advice for a young entrepreneur from Montreal be? She's looking to grow her business. And I'm saying it's interesting because it's such a traditional question. On the one hand, it doesn't tell you which industry and so on. And actually, that's fine, because there are certain things that are industry irrelevant. It's about more than industry. It's about you, isn't it, Danièle? What would you say to her?
Well, what I would say to this wonderful entrepreneur, first of all, is being an entrepreneur, you have to understand that it's not, and this is my point, it's not something that you learn. You learn the tools, you learn how to get better, but it is something that you are. You have this kind of things. We are just kind of, I would say, even a weird category of people where we just keep it's true.
So punishing, yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
we just I don't know. There is this force inside of us. If someone tells us, "Come on, look, it's not going to work," we keep telling them, "Maybe, maybe not." It's just that kind of passion. Now, one question that I ask usually when this question comes up, and I put it to the very, very strong side of the question, where you're like, what? I say to people, tell me, without thinking, don't think. If I ask you, are you ready, if you go into that route, to lose everything? Your marriage, your home, are you ready? Because that's a possibility. If your answer is, oh, well, I'm not sure, I don't know, it is legitimate, but think about it, because it might happen. It could happen. I'm not saying it will. I'm saying it could. So if that happens, what would you do? Some people lose everything. They go bankrupt. But my God, a few months later, a year later, they are back, even stronger. And I always want to add something. Please know, and this is something important, that's why I keep saying it. A human being will never be a failure. A human being is the most beautiful thing that will ever happen to the world. Look at what we've created. But we do go through different phases of failures. And that is absolutely normal. This is the way to learn, to experience. So just know that. Know that whatever you do, whatever you go through, you are not and will never be a failure. It's what we go through that could be a failure.
I mean, things are a learning experience. Absolutely. It again depends on how you frame things and talk to yourself about them, right? There was something about, you know, so I do a lot of work around money and life. That's one of the things that I do. And a few years ago, I created something and I interviewed entrepreneurs. And I realized when I was looking back, because this was a value-based thing, and the values were around what is your best life? What is your definition of success? What are your priorities in life and how do you head towards them? It's through daily behavior and so on. So my point is that the people who embodied these values, the entrepreneurs I interviewed, were all women, actually. I didn't realize this at the time. And I say this because to be an entrepreneur and to be successful, that is your definition. Sometimes you want to be successful in a village. Sometimes you want to be successful on the world stage, right? And this is really important. I think it really has to go back to what you said at the beginning, Danielle, which is, who are you? What is your core value? That is what it's all about. So if your definition of success is, I want to work from home, I've got 4 children, and I don't want to be flying around the world, then that means there are certain boundaries that you've created for yourself and they work for you.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm saying all this is because, of course, this is part of the issue of how do you define success? There's such loose terms. You need to define what it is you're talking about, will do, won't do, and all the rest of it. You said something, Danielle, which was that you decided how big you wanted to be.
Yeah, absolutely. There is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No. So what is it? What is that? And where are you now? Because that's the other thing. Life is phases, as you said. What works at one point, you can expand at another. Because really, the biggest secret, I believe, is the ability to sustain your success. If you can't keep doing it, that's when you fail, when you cannot sustain yourself physically, emotionally, all the rest of it. So go on, Danielle, please tell us.
What I would say is the size of your business or the direction that you're going to want to take with different businesses, because sometimes you can have different businesses. It is not about the money. I never did something, I mean, seriously, never did something for the money. I first and foremost wanted to create a safe environment for my family. I wanted to make sure that I was not going to be, for example, in a job and be fired the day after because maybe my supervisor didn't like me. Was my motivation is, can I do that for myself and secure my family? Securing my family 25 years ago was to have a roof, to have food every day, to have good clothes, to be able to survive in a world that I didn't know. Remember, I was an immigrant. So I had no clue of what was around me. I had to learn everything from scratch. So learning, making new friends, making sure that my kids were safe, making sure that we will be accepted and included. So many things that you have to learn. So if you take that and you put it back into any kind of situation, this is where I say you choose the size, the place, the way. What I became now, it was not just a vision, it was the sum of every action that was put on a daily basis. I didn't say in 10 years, I want to be there. No, what I said is every time I would add an employee within the company, I thought this is a member of the family. They have a family that I'm going to be, in a way, responsible too for. So let's make sure that the family can grow to a certain extent, that we keep doing what I've always promised, which is the mission of the company, being in the non-invasive, being in the natural, making sure that we are respectful and that we understand what the collective means. Meaning, if I make money, I want to make sure that the people I make money with are also making money. So all these things are important, Nima. It is about, I decided that I didn't want to be a company of 500 people, nor even 100 people, employees. But what I did is what I probe. What I say is look around and see that, I don't know around the world, but in Canada, 95% of companies are small and medium businesses.
Mhm.
Okay. So knowing that, how can you contribute to make sure that that tissue, the economy tissue, remains and grows? Well, there is a way. And I decided that I was going to tap into that my way. I'm not saying this is the best way, but this was my way. So what I did, I decided that I was going to keep within the company the core departments, what was important, like the heart and all the important part. But in order to help smaller companies, I was going to go out and find the one that were experts in their domain and give them contract, give them mandate. And you know what? It was really the best decision I've ever made because they did a great job with me and for me. And they, by using my name, got more clients. And I got more of the good job that I was expecting from them. Everybody's happy. This is my way of contributing. So you see, you can decide whatever you want, whenever you want. Oh,
Brilliant.
yeah.
And what a perfect timing. Hello, Pierre.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? And thank you for joining us.
I thought it would be late, but I'm happy that was at the right time. So happy to join your selective group.
Brilliant. So joining us from Canada, obviously,
Yeah.
the Minister of Innovation and Economy, Pierre Fitzgibbon. Thank you for making the time to be here. And you've done the perfect thing, which is timing. Timing is everything. We've just been mentioning that, SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises, are the lifeblood of every economy. 90+% basically of businesses are SMEs. And the majority of people who work in SMEs or create them are, guess what? They are women, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
But with COVID, they're having a bit of a tough time. I know that you pledged $2.5 billion towards helping and seeing people through this phase. But for example, in the UK, there's a lot of criticism around, is it the right sort of help? Not from Canada, I'm talking about the UK where I am at the moment. Is it, are people getting, not being looked after? Are people going to suffer because they don't fit the right definition of some policy and so on? So Pierre, what is your pledge? What is your pledge, okay, to the women around here? Yes, Danièle.
Before Pierre starts talking, I just want to say something about our minister, Mr. Fitzgibbon. He's the Minister of Innovation and Economy in Quebec. And I have to say something. For once, we have a minister in this very, very, very special ministry that is listening to the diversity, listening to actually one of his actual core, he loves it, which is women in tech or technologies. And one of the reasons why he's taking time from his very, very busy schedule, he accepted to be with us because he wanted to actually share the way he sees things and the way he planned things, especially for Quebec, but is going to be also in Canada. So I just wanted to say that because he's a very keen minister, and I really want to say thank you because not many ministers would take the time to do this. So thank you.
Okay.
And you're obviously open and inclusive, and that's the first thing because you're here, So absolutely, please.
Good. Well, thank you very much, and appreciate to be part of your group. But frankly, I'm very honored, and I respect a lot what you're doing, which is really promoting closing the gender gap, and also to help women really enhance in the technology world. So, women in tech are two kind of words that fit really where we are. And I also commend you for respecting or adhering to the U.S. Sustainable Development Goals. You're one of the goal actually, and that's I understand from reading through your literature that education, entrepreneurship, social inclusion, and science innovation are core to your effort. So that's very relevant. Quebec, small world about Quebec. Quebec, we're a small community, 8.3 million people, a pretty diversified economy. One of our challenge is that we mirror Japan in terms of demographic challenges. So we have an aging population. Henceforth, it's going to be very, very important for our success to be able to tap into immigration and to tap into women. Frankly, the women in partnership in Quebec is not acceptable. The level's still very low. We're
Very.
seeing more women in the startups, but we're not seeing enough women doing the buyout of companies. We have in Quebec alone about 35,000 enterprises that will change hand in the next 5 to 10 years. And I believe that the women properly educated in business should be part of that group who should acquire these companies. And we're not seeing a lot of women for reasons that are not fully understandable to me. Maybe don't have the same network, maybe don't have the same courage to go and see a bank, whatever is the reason. I want to remedy that because it is a population of especially the younger generation. It's a population of entrepreneurs that I think we need to nurture properly, and we need to equip properly with the proper mentorship, the proper support system, so they are at the helm. Also, talk about technology. We have a pretty ambitious artificial intelligence program in Quebec. Actually, we are the super cluster, we call it, in Canada, and we are one of the top firm in the world, including London, including Singapore, for example. And to my disarray, there's not enough. I don't see enough young girls coming out of the technology world working. We're evolving in the AI, so we want to change that. So we have the AI, which is an important cluster. We have the number of businesses that will change hands in the next few years, and we have an aging population. So to me, diversity, inclusivity is paramount to our success. So when Danièle, who's been very, very active in the community, in that community in Quebec, has approached me to be in discussion with you, but also to look at what are you doing, what you are doing in your mission. It got me very highly interested to kind of figure out how we can capitalize.
Okay, so when lockdown is lifted and people at some point can either get on a ship or a plane or whatever and get to Canada, for example, why should women in tech consider moving to Canada to perhaps start up a business or buy into a business or something? What is that thing when you have the world to choose from? Why go there to Quebec?
We are nice people. We speak.
So important, yes.
We speak multiple languages. We actually are a multicultural environment, which makes it very, very attractive for immigrants. Make it very attractive for foreign investors. And I think that over the last 2 years we've been in power, I've been stressing that there's 3 pillars of our economic development. The first one is innovation, because I want to further invest in innovation in our enterprise, SME particularly, and that includes automation, robotization, and also includes digital investment. That is core to our strategy. We have AI to support it. The second one is we want to attract more foreign direct investment, because we are 8.3 million people, a fairly diversified industry. We cannot be good at everything, and I'd like to add the large order takers. We have Airbus now building the A220. We've got Pratt & Whitney making airplane engines. So we've got numerous foreign companies that have Ubisoft, which has established actually their second largest hub in the world after France. So why is that? Well, first of all, on the energy side, we are a green economy. 99% of our energy is green, low cost. We got 18 universities in Quebec, which is high versus our population. So the level of sophistication of our constituency is pretty high, and our costs of doing business, I would say, are not cheap, but they're pretty average cost. So therefore, if you are a large user of energy, you become Q1 on the cost curve. If you don't, then you have access to what we think is high talent. So I think talent, cost of doing business, and we're in the core of the North American economy, which is a very large economy, and because of our free trade agreement, and you know that from the UK perspective, we have three free trade agreement. We have one trade agreement with Europe, one with the US and Mexico, and one in Asia. So you come into Montreal, you can access all the US market really easily without any border per se in terms of customs. So we have a pretty enticing.
Do you want more excuse? It's just because I'm a lot of fun.
Okay, yeah. As long as you have an annual gala ball thing, let's all get together, okay? But Pierre, if you could just give us a layer down, which is this. Yes, Canada. I mean, I know so many people who live in Canada. They love you guys out there and everything about it. It is a bit too cold, by the way. But anyway, let's move on from that. It's the idea of, okay, so there are these opportunities, there are these needs, and so on. How are you, bearing in mind that you set the stage saying, yes, we want women to lean into this industry and we want women to participate more? What is happening to enable that? That's my very specific question. With all this opportunity, etc. So, for example, would you be saying, okay, we're going to mandate that X% of things that parts bought have to be bought from companies that are 50%, not necessarily owned by women, but 50% of the employees are women across the board, for example? Is that the level of detail that you're looking at or not?
Actually, at this point in time, I've been avoiding these targets that become sometimes the wrong direction. For example, I was thinking, and I will do it, and Danièle will help me, to have a fund, financial fund for startups or for buyout company. But I want to be careful, because if you overcreate structure, it means that you're telling the woman to go in that structure only, which I think is wrong. What I manage Investissement Québec, which is one of the investment arm of the government. We've got over now $8 billion of investment. I want that fund to be at parity in terms of helping women in business or not. So I want to be careful by setting some targets. At the same time, one of the problems that I'm discovering, coming from the business backgrounds, I don't think we've provided enough mentorship, networking. We have not allowed our young women to be surrounded as I was when I started in business long time ago. So I think that's the effort that I want to do, because there's nobody in our community that is asking, do we have different standards for women in business? The answer is no. It's just, and I would say that the younger generation obviously are way above for that. I think we need to enable the young women to be more aggressive. So targets, we may have to, but I hope we won't have to do it there.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'll be very honest and say, ideally, nobody should have any targets in that sense, because it should be a given that people can stay in the pipeline, right? However, the reality is that it doesn't happen. Otherwise, you would have 50% representation across the pipeline.
Across the board.
One key thing is the retention rate. Nobody really, people do talk about it, but it's not one of the key factors. Personally, I would say, please, if there's something to look at retention, because it tells you about the ethos of the company. Somebody here, Joelle, is asking you if business, if women in tech are going to get tax breaks, for example. What's the answer on that?
Well, listen, we do have a lot of incentives. We have to modulate the incentives for whatever we want to create. But I am fully supportive of having the proper structure to allow women to emerge into the community. To talk about your targets, board of directors, we have not at the government decided to set a standard for our state enterprise to be at parity. But you know what? I manage 5 of them. They're all at parity. And they're at parity because it became almost natural that it got that way. So I think, I don't know, I cannot speak for a lot of community, but I think in our community, I think we're there.
Great.
I think what we need to do is provide the template, provide the playground, provide the ammunition for young women to feel the courage to go and tell a banker, I need to borrow $1 million to buy a company.
Yeah. Actually, what Mr. Fitzgibbon is saying, when I started introducing him, I said, what is good is that when you have an ear to understand why there are certain inequalities within different domains, and what can we do for that? What are the specific and particular actions, because it doesn't make sense. So when it doesn't make sense to a business person, as he said, he comes from the business world, so that helps a lot, because for him it's like, are we really still there? And yes, we are. Now let's target what it is. What it is awareness, the explanation, the information, and to be, like I said before, as one voice, one voice. No, no fights. I can't stand hearing again the word, we're going to fight for something. We're not going to fight for anything. We're just going to do what we love to do. It could be technology, it could be anything else. Just do it, just go for it. And now that maybe we're going to have the tools to do it, because yes, COVID-19, like I said, is a very damaging, unfortunately, pandemic for many families, many entrepreneurs, it's worldwide, but still had one and many other positive side, which brought out, like immediately and fast, what needs to be done in order to really relaunch, recreate, rethink, redo together. It's a collective, we're all in it. The way that we were doing things is not going to work anymore. So,
Well,
yeah, exactly. This
my fingers crossed, definitely.
it has to be. Go ahead.
So, I mean, I'm going to share this because I'd like your take on this, Pierre. For example, you're saying that women, there is this idea that maybe not maybe, we know people hold themselves back and so on. I'll give you an example, a real example that happened in the last few days. Two women, one in Canada and one in Europe. They don't know each other, but both of them came to me saying, one of them is the CFO of a company. The other one, I can't remember what she does, but they have an issue. Their male counterparts, their male peers, the women feel they don't know how to interact, be able to have the real conversations that need to be had. So the question was, what do I do so that they can take me seriously? Do I shake their hand strong? Do I change, my jacket? What do I do? But it was not a silly question. It was a serious, deep question. These women are part of board setups, high up in organizations, and they're really, really struggling. And so I'm bringing this up not to elicit an answer necessarily, because ultimately the answer is within that you are equal, but it's actually just to raise the idea that we are now in 2020. These are women who are at the top of their game, dealing with their male counterparts who are also at the top of their game, and they have such problems that are deep-rooted. Therefore, my point is, this idea of, okay, so we have opportunity, hooray, there is money set aside, great, okay, but what about the reality? My definition of equality is, it is about equal reality, meaning, when women don't die poor, women are 3 times more likely to live below the poverty line in their 70s, for example. This is huge, folks, which means that the majority of us here are going to be very poor before we die. How crazy is that? When we have equal reality, we can stop providing incentive or support that enables marginalized people, in this case, who happen to be women, to stay in to get ahead and stay ahead. And that's really what I would love us. It's not going to happen now, but I would love you at some point. Let me know your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts. What is that enabling thing? That thing that means
you know what?
reality.
I'll venture a point. I sat on numerous public boards of companies, and I think we're seeing a major shift into how you evaluate performance. Performance used to be evaluated 99% EBITDA, profit, earning per shares, shareholder value. That was the model, what we call the traditional capitalism. I think we're emerging now with the younger generation into a different form of capitalism, which will be more inclusive, more cooperative. And I think that, CEO should be measured by all kinds of leadership attributes. Clearly, climate change will become a very important factor, and climate change will become a retention factor or attraction factor for young generation. How we deal with diversity, largely defined, not only gender. I think the world is the Western world is going to an aging population, is going to have to adjust its mindset, its structure to be more inclusive, and that woman is obviously part of that dilemma. So I think CEOs should be measured on retention, measured not only on targets 50-50 parity, but more than that. It's not only 50-50 having an equal woman and men. It's more than that. It's deeper than that. It's how you work with how you work with inclusivity, because the search for talent is probably the number one element, and henceforth the retention becomes also equally important, and that's different. I didn't evolve into that world. Now we're seeing that I'm no longer on board of directors because I'm in conflict, but I was before I joined the election, and I can tell you the way we measured our CEOs, women or men, and one woman was a CEO. I think it was a totally different perspective. So I would hope that the new generation will bring to light how we should look at businesses. What is the business's contribution to society? And it ain't going to be only shareholder profit.
So, Danièle, I'm going to ask you a question that Pierre, is related kind of. But first, I want to say, you know what my wish is? My wish is that bank managers view businesses through this lens, okay? Because seriously, everybody says, so support the SME, give them this bridging loan, this fund. Actually, you can't jump through enough hoops, right? And that's the thing. It's about how people who lend the money, ultimately, how they define whether you're worth it or not. So that's a huge thing. And Danièle, what I wanted to ask you is this, what do you wish existed when you started out in terms of along the lines of what Pierre is saying? So it could be a facility, something, an incentive, an enabling thing. What is it is it the bank manager who gets it? What is that thing that would have really made a huge difference to your life?
Mentoring and having people that are already what we call, I don't know if I should say success, because as I say many times, success has to be defined. It's a personal thing. Success for me is different than success for you, Nima. Success for me is different from success from Mr. Fitzgibbon. So it is who is supportive of your ideas, your goal, and where you want to be and how you could reach there. Sometimes, yes, of course, money is necessary. There is no question asked about that. In order for us to grow, we need money. Money is an energy. It goes in and goes out, and it allows us to really do what needs to be done. But beyond that, are we going into the right direction? Are we having the proper discussion or negotiation? How are we learning a new tool? How do we need more formation training? We need someone, and sometimes it could be maybe 2 or 3 different people from different industries. There is one thing that I want to add to that, is we have a tendency of going to people that are like us, within the same industry as us. This is a mistake, because the challenges for companies, SMEs or bigger companies, are the same. It's just the size of the challenge that is different. So if you speak to someone from the construction field, and I am in the beauty, you would be surprised to know that maybe the answer to my challenge, he has that answer, because he's looking at it in a different lens, right? And he's gone already through that challenge, and he found the answer. So please, if there's anything that I would have loved to have, which today we have, it is access to training, mentoring, new ideas, capabilities, and getting together, having some, movement like this one, Women in Tech. Look at us. Look, it's all around the world.
It's not having to reinvent the wheel all over again each time, all on your own. Yeah, absolutely. By the way, we're kind of like running out of time here. So what I'm going to say is this. If anybody has a question, please post them. There was a question to do with pay, which I'll come to in just a minute. But first I want to share this because it's on the back of what Danièle was saying earlier about, Danièle broke things down to her definition of dignity and survival and what was a priority. And it was food in the bellies of yourself and your children, a roof over your head. So when Pierre joined us, we were just on the point of behavior finance and so on. And I used to think, so you know how people say education is the key. Education is the key. Women, education, key. Okay, fine. It's important. It's got its role. I disagree, okay? Because I then thought, when I was doing the money life stuff, actually the key is choice and dignity. If you have the ability to put a roof over your head and food in your belly and the belly of those who depend on you, then you can walk away from a rubbish situation and recreate yourself, right? So it's about financial independence, not wealth, but that baseline of being a human being.
Yeah.
But I am wrong. I'm wrong, folks, okay? Because a couple of years ago, I was, the UN invited 2,000 female entrepreneurs, right, to a huge session. And it was about the role of the entrepreneur to, enabling countries and societies to hit the development goals. Okay, so what was the role of entrepreneurs in making this happen? And I was getting ready to go into this room to chair this next session with 2,000 women from all over the world, right? And I was thinking, and a lot of them were, there was every continent represented. And I was thinking of this idea of, education, money. I know educated women who are not independent and have no self-worth. I know women who have no education, but they're really independent because they went and found a job. Where it starts with is an intrinsic belief in the fact that you are equal as a human being. That's what it's about. When you believe that you are equal to anybody and everybody out there, you actually start behaving differently. You say, actually, wait a minute, what about me? I'll do that, thank you. I'm going to have my chance, thank you. Get out my way, I was here first, thank you. Kind of. But it's that, when you believe you are intrinsically, it is a fact, a given, equal, then you get, ideally, the financial independence in my book, if you had to choose, and then the education can follow. That's the kind of thing. But if you don't believe you have a right, that you are equally entitled, nothing works. Right. So
soft skills, Nima. What you're talking about is soft skill. There is education, what you learn from universities and all kind of ways, but it is about soft skills. How you perceive yourself in the world, how you respect yourself, and how you transcend that. You see, I know my place, and I know your place, and I know my minister's place. So if that is understood, and I will never, ever cross that line, that there is no way we cannot communicate and share ideas and grow together. But you have to know your space and your place.
So I'm just going to turn to a couple of questions. Pierre, could you share on a day-to-day work environment how to promote women inclusion and empower men? Is that what the question is? So I don't know if this question is how this happens already or what change needs to come about. So perhaps, Pierre, do you have a comment regarding this?
Well, I'm not fully understanding the question, but I think I would say that we manage over lots of billions of dollars of investment, and I think that the decision-making process of the government, generally speaking, is to allow the inclusion of our immigrants, inclusion of our diversity, because that is, I'm very, very, very concerned about labor shortage. I'm very concerned about having a purpose. We need retention of talent within our enterprises. So I would largely define that. I think my comment earlier about leadership of the CEO of a company, now I'm applying the same rules as I look at our investment decision-making process, whereby it has to be included. And I don't need a target. The target of inclusion is already part of my process, given the challenge we have with work shortages.
Yeah, it's interesting because this idea of targets, personally, I believe it's about fixing the companies and the system to keep women, to enable them just to stay, because they are 50% of the population and more than 50% of people who graduate from universities. So it's not about fixing the figures, not about saying I want to have this number. It's about fixing the system, and therefore by default you fix the numbers and they stay, right? So it's a long-term thing, of course. It's not going to happen overnight. My message to women is do it yourself. If you need something to change, you need to pinpoint and then figure out how to go about making it happen. Danièle, what is your message to women?
Just go for it.
Okay. Do it yourself, go for it. Okay.
Just go for it and believe in yourself. And again, I wish very soon we will stop listening to this kind of I don't have confidence or women don't have confidence in themselves. Well, remember, if there is someone that is running the house and educating our children, which is the toughest job in the world, well, we know how to handle ourselves and we know how to do things and many things at one time. So please understand that. Please take back your power and please know who you are and what you want. As simple as it is. Don't try to be somebody else. Just be you and be happy to be you.
And I'd say one thing to add to that, Nima, is that I think our value system is changing. The younger generation are requiring a different value system. And frankly, look at the young generation. I think women have more alignment to this value system. It's going to be young boys who have to watch at one point if they're going to be able to follow. So I think we are seeing a change that is coming naturally, which we want, as you said earlier.
So this is a lovely point at which to end. There's a comment here. It says, my father told me at a young age, always remember, before you are a girl, you are a human being.
Yes.
And this stuck, and this person says, Marge said that she did what needs to be done. And so, people of the universe, we have finished. Guess what? I don't know if you noticed any prize. I'll give you a free whatever, something. If you remember what was in my background. Anybody remember what was in the background before the shot got smaller? No? Any takers? 3, 2, write it down. No?
What is it?
It was my other rocket spaceship. Woo! Because this is about blasting off, right? You didn't see it? I've got another one in the back. And I will say to you at the very end, thank you. Thank you, Danièle.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you to everybody. Thank you for making this happen, Ayumi. And guess what, women? It's your move.
Ciao.
It's your
Nice.
move.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Love you. Bye. Thank you, Nima.
Take care, Danièle. It's been brilliant.